Alright, I've got to own up. This list might not be what you were expecting. I know the title says 3 things to read before your medical school interview, but more on that later. Hey friends, my name's Dibblin. I'm a 4th year medical student at King's College London, and this video is going to be all about what you should be doing to prepare for your medical school interview. First of all, there is going to be more than 3 things on this list, and keep watching and you'll find out why. Secondly, any of the books that I'm recommending on this list are also fantastic audiobooks, so please don't feel like this is something you have to read. You could also listen to these if that's how you choose to consume your content. We're going to start off this list with 3 fantastic books that I think everyone applying to medicine should read. If you haven't read them already, don't worry, you still have time before your interview, and if you have already interviewed, you still have time to read them, so I think read them before you start. The first one is this book, Do No Harm by Henry Marsh. Do No Harm is a great book by consultant neurosurgeon Henry Marsh. It's all about his patients, their outcomes, their journey, and about how the NHS is fantastic, but sometimes is not the best place to work as a clinician. I think overall the book is a fantastic kind of expose about the realities of being a surgeon, and one of the key things and one of the really important things that is spoken about in the book is mistakes. Mistakes as a surgeon in particular. And I think hopefully it will help future students to be able to reflect on making mistakes, because eventually we all will. One of the key themes that the book really kind of bites into is the idea that surgeons are without error, without fear, that surgeons are these kind of immovable beings. That's obviously not the case. Surgeons are human beings just like the rest of us. And I think it's fantastic that this book really kind of breaks down that idea. Second book that I recommend all aspiring medical students should read, and I think all current medical students, if you haven't read it already, especially anyone thinking about going into surgery, is another book by an amazing neurosurgeon. This is by Paul Kalanithi. This is When Breath Becomes Air. Before you read this book, I do want to say have a pack of tissues ready with you, because I finished this book sitting in an airport and it meant that I was boarding my plane with tears streaming down my face. If you haven't already heard of Paul Kalanithi was a neurosurgeon who then developed a terminal cancer, and the book was actually published posthumously, kind of as a memoir. The book is a fantastic journey through Dr. Kalanithi's life. It goes from him as a medical student trying to work out what he wants from life, through to being a surgeon, and then through to being a patient and even a father. There are tons of deep and profound questions in the book. One of them that really kind of resonated with me was, what makes life worth living in the face of death? What can you do when life becomes interrupted? What do you do when you have a child as your own life comes to an end? The book is really deep and it's really moving. And like I said, have a pack of tissues with you. There are tons of amazing books by some fantastic doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals. I think medical students should read as many of them as they can, but I had to keep this list down to 3. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. And the third book that I would recommend that everyone applying to medicine reads is by Atul Gawande, and it's Being Mortal. The book really goes a long way to dissecting and helping us to further understand the successes but also the failures of modern medicine. The book encourages us to confront death, and by doing so, make the most of our lives. That's the 3 books that I wanted to recommend everyone should read. There are way more, and I'm sure other people will have some other ideas about what books should be on this list. I'm sure some people would talk about This Is Going to Hurt, which is very funny but also very harrowing. And another book by Henry Marsh, Admissions, which I think I have just here, is also a fantastic read, and I would recommend anyone reads that after Do No Harm. That's the 3 books that I'm going to recommend, and I'm lumping all of those books together as one thing, because one thing you need to read is books. Books are a fantastic way of learning, and it shows that you have an interest around medicine and you've spent your time to read around. Second thing is probably the most important on this list. That is your personal statement. Please read your personal statement before your interview, because I can almost guarantee that your interviewer will have. And if they're asking you questions about your personal statement and you don't know what you're talking about, but they know more about your personal statement than you, that's not a good look. Have a quick read of your personal statement the night before, have a copy of it in front of you, and if you are asked a question that you've already answered in your personal statement, obviously don't just copy what you've said, don't read your personal statement out loud, but elaborate on what you've said in there and don't just make something new up. The third thing that I think everyone needs to read if you're applying to medicine in the UK is you need to go to the GMC website. That's the General Medical Council website. If you don't already know, the General Medical Council is like the authority for doctors in the UK. They're in charge of deciding who is allowed to be a doctor and who's not allowed to practice as a doctor in the UK, and they publish lots of rules and lots of guidance about what makes a good doctor, but also what makes a good medical student. So as someone who's applying to medical school, you don't need the skills of a doctor yet, but you do need to have some of the skills of a good medical student, and you need to be looking forward and working out how you're going to develop the skills that you need to become a good medical student. If you have your medical school interview coming up, then massive good luck. If you haven't already heard back, it's not too late. There still are some medical schools giving interviews. If you've already had your medical school interview, I would still recommend reading those 3 books, and I would definitely recommend having a look at the GMC website if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Remember to like and subscribe for more.